Okay. I'm actually rather jealous because now I'm not the person with the exotic accent. Now it's you. Now I'm number two. You know what I mean? I'm in the bottom of the pile again, so I'm a little bit jealous.
Someone else will get a bit of the attention today.
Yeah, that's it. I'm like, motherfuckers, they're probably going to be messaging me saying, what the hell was she talking about? I was like, did you understand me?
I know,
Never
right?
mind, Mona. Like, Jesus. So take it from the start, because you do a load of things. You've been to a load of places. People are going to be thinking, what the fuck is going on? So in a nutshell, what would you tell people? Who you are? What do you do? What have you done? What is this thing called life?
Oh, okay. Okay, so where to start? Born and bred in South Africa. I've basically been living there my whole life. I actually come from a very big sporting background, and that's kind of what got me moving overseas. So I'll kind of jump back and forth a little bit. And then I ended up moving to the States in 2016. But in 2015, I actually trained with my coach in USA for 3 months. And that's what actually made me, realize this is actually the place I wanted to be. But my whole life, I've been like, I need to move overseas. I just feel like, there's something greater out there for me. This is, an opportunity for me to grow. What can I do to actually, take this next step in my life? And when I went to the States for the training for the World Championships in 2015, I said to myself, I'm going there for 3 months, but not just for a 3-month holiday. I'm going to take this time, network, meet people, because I see myself living here. And the only way I'm going to do this is if I make connections and put myself out there. And I'm very much an introverted person, but I also knew that, if I wanted to do this, I'm going to need to put myself out there. So it kind of felt like it took a lot of energy to do that. But it was also very rewarding, I think, because I'm such an introverted person. And I've always loved meeting new people and experiencing, new things. And sport has opened up a lot of doors for me. And then, I got a job opportunity in 2016, ended up moving to Austin, Texas, lived there for, I think it was like 2 to 3 years, actually met my husband in the States too. And he's a Kiwi, and he was actually down there for coaching too. So I think, that's kind of how the paths aligned. Then he got a job actually in Romania. So we ended up moving to Romania for 2 years. And then from Romania, after the 2 years, we came back. Now we are back in New Zealand. But to put it also all in a, in a nutshell, like I said, my background very much comes from sport. And I was a karateka back in the day. And I started traveling overseas from like the young age of 10. I also knew from that young age, I'm very blessed to have a dad that very much always pushed me to be the best that I can be. And he always said to me, if you need, or if you want to be the best, you're going to have to go the extra mile. And he's always been the person to encourage me and push me, even when I felt like, I'm at my lowest, like there's no way I can even, get here. He will be the reminder and be my rock, where he's like, Mona, look how far you've come, and you've done this by yourself. You can do this. So that kind of just lit a fire under me again and would get me motivated. And in the year 2000, I started weightlifting to help my karate, which I actually became a 6-time karate world champion, with also the help of weightlifting. That's why I kind of say, my sporting background is kind of like the main thing. But I started in weightlifting to help the karate, and my weightlifting coach back at that time, he said to me, Mona, you're pretty good in weightlifting. I think you should do a competition. But I was the only girl in my city that did weightlifting. And there was also a lot of stigma back then around, women doing sports that had to do with lifting weights. I was 12 years old. It was a real big struggle to actually find a coach. and someone to actually be like, okay, I will coach a 12-year-old girl Olympic weightlifting, where now, you know, it's so normal for you, like being in like the gym world and stuff, like you see youngsters starting weightlifting from like such a tender age, because it's a very safe sport and you can work a lot of technical aspects and you can do a lot of body weight strengthening things, and people don't always know that. So I had a lot of teachers and people say to me, you know, what kind of parents would put their daughter into weightlifting when she's 18? She's going to be in a wheelchair, and like, you know, just all this, like, and you're going to look like a man one day. And, you know, fast forward now, like 22 years later, you know, like I felt like through all of my years of doing weightlifting, like I've kept my femininity. I love girly things. I love being a badass, lifting weights and going heavy and like being like a beast when I train.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of things, I'm like, I love getting my nails done and my hair. And, you know, I love being a girl. And I love breaking that stigma where, you know, it's not just you have to be a man or look like a man to lift heavy weights, if that makes sense. Yeah, so kind of in a nutshell, that's my sporting background. I didn't go into the mental health stuff now yet. We'll probably talk about that sometime.
Yeah, we can bleed off
It
into
feels
that
like there's a lot.
Holy fuck, I didn't know about the karate. You just want to slide that one in there, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, I was kind of champion of the world for a few years, you know, don't worry about that. I'll kick your ass, mate, don't worry. And then I'll outlift you as well, motherfucker. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. No, that's absolutely badass. And like, I'm going to touch on kids in sport and more specifically in Olympic weightlifting, simply because like I think everyone should do it. Obviously, if you don't want to do it, you don't enjoy it, then go do something that you enjoy 100%. But I think everyone should have the opportunity and like equal opportunity to be able to try these things, right? And what doesn't make sense to me, it's like we both come from, well, me's not so much, man's football, the country, but yourself, you come from a very rugby orientated country, right? And even here in New Zealand, right, everything's rugby, right? You're like, okay, let's look at it objectively. You will allow your 12-year-old to pick up a ball and run head first, right, full sprint, and another 12-year-old to run full sprint at each other, clash, boom, fall over, stamp on each other, get up, go again, and be like, yeah, good job. Exactly. But you won't allow them to do an air squat with a PVC pipe.
I know, it's crazy. And I don't know, Alex, if you've seen, like, there's a lot of like legit research that's been done on sport and injuries and from a young age. And I think one of the number one sports that actually caused injuries was soccer, like football, you know. And, you know, people are like, what? Not weightlifting, you know? And weightlifting is actually far down the line. And
it's one of the least.
Yes, exactly. And weightlifting is actually a really, really safe sport. And I think, you know, people are now also with, you know, CrossFit introducing a bit more weightlifting to the scene, and people, you know, starting to know a bit more about the sport. They're starting to realize that, you know, girls can do weightlifting, kids can do weightlifting. I mean, I ran 2 youth programs in the States, and I had kids as young as 5 years old. I would train them with a broomstick, and we would do body weight exercises, hanging on things, you know, like typical kid things, like what you would do basically in gymnastics, or even if you go to a playground. And those are the things, the movements that actually get you strong. And that's the foundation that you need to teach kids. And then they'll take a PVC pipe or a broomstick and learn the technical movements. And people see it as, from the get-go, you give a kid 50 kilograms, you know, like 10 times their body weight, and they have to snatch it. And you're like, no, that's not how it works. Like, you actually, if you take them to a coach who knows what they're doing, it will be a long time before they actually start to lift heavy weights.
Yep. Oh, I super geek out over this thing. Like, that's one of my niches is youth S&C. So I absolutely love coaching the kids. Like, I think it's phenomenal. Like, the stuff you get back, man, you know, and just kind of breaking down the societal stigma, but also you're proving to a kid, you're teaching kid life through physical exercise, which, like, I mean, that's the greatest thing in the world. You're teaching them how to be better at life through making them healthier and more confident human beings. And I'm super jealous that you got to work with 5-year-olds. Like, I think the youngest I had when in my class with weightlifting was 9.
Okay. Also young, but it's I love it. Oh, it's so amazing. And it's like what you were saying now, the rewards, as a coach, when you coach these youngsters. And when I started coaching, when my dad has always had this outlook, like, who he wanted to coach. And I think because he coached me from such a young age, he wanted whoever he coached, he wanted to make them a champion. Where we actually had a little debate the other day, and I said to him, like, my coaching methodology actually is I want to create a safe space for kids. And not that he doesn't do that, but he very much loves also when his kids do well. And so do I, but honestly, for me, a bigger reward is when a parent comes to me and like they say to me, this little one hardly spoke at school, they didn't have friends. Now all of a sudden they have confidence, they're starting to like go up to people and make friends, or their school marks are improving because now they've got better concentration, or a kid that used to be bullied, I've given them a place now where they feel like they've got a community. And to me, honestly, like it's the most hectic thing, Alex. Like, I would sometimes go home after the parents would tell me these things, or I would coach the youngsters and I would have like tears in my eyes.
Crying,
I would be like,
100%.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know how I can almost cry 3 times a week after I coach youth athletes, but it's just, and it's happy cry, it's like, oh my gosh, it touched my heart how much sport can teach a person, like you said, teach a kid life. And it depends, obviously on the coaches and stuff too, but it's so amazing. And I almost encourage like all parents out there to, like let their kids have this opportunity to get into sport. And they don't always just have to go into sport to become a champion, but like you said, sport can teach them a lot of life skills.
I had a really heated debate with I worked with a private swimming club, right? And I was their head S&C coach, and I had from 7 up to 18. We weren't doing Olympic weightlifting, but we were doing sport-specific S&C for swimmers, right? And I had a really heated debate with the head coach at the time because they were like, oh, everything's about, getting them better times and getting to regionals, then getting to nationals, and getting to British, then going inters, and then going fucking Europeans, and then going youth Olympic games. And I'm like, right, okay. Let's strip that down, okay? Because they're like dreams and aspirations, and they're phenomenal, right? And yeah, I would love to see the kids achieve that if that's something that they really wanted to do. But at the same time, like, if they walk down the stairs and turn funny and break something because you've either not like helped them in a way that they need to, or just absolutely kick 7 bells of shit out of them so they're always exhausted, like, you're never going to do that. You go an OG Bulgarian weightlifting method of, I'm going to take a pool of, like, say, for example, 1,000 athletes, and I'm going to absolutely beat them to oblivion and break them. And then 2 of them are going to go to the Olympics and 1 of them is going to win gold. That's it. Granted,
exactly. What happens to the rest?
And what happens to the rest?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
it's
what
like,
happens?
We know.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I know what you're doing. Nice technique, bro.
Yeah.
No, but what happens to the rest?
Exactly.
I'm like, okay, that's great. I'm like, oh, but they got regionals coming up. I'm like, okay. And swimming's a difficult one, and so is gymnastics because it's an early specialization sport as well, right?
Yes.
But I think using a British example, because he is world champion in his stroke, of Adam Peaty, he only started like developing when he was 16, and usually they're kicked out of the program by 16. If you've not sort of made it to like national level by 13, you're usually like, yeah, you're done. Like 14 maybe, right? So he was a little bit later, so maybe we're going to see a little bit of a shift. But they're like, oh, they've got regionals coming up. I'm like, okay, that's fantastic. And they've got that to do in 4 weeks' time. Okay, cool. But what happens 4 weeks after that? What happens the next one that comes after that? Is like, we can't have short-term thinking. And God forbid, okay, they put all the chips in that basket and they want to go professional swimmer. Like, okay, that's probably not the greatest of example. There's not a lot of money in that, but I wanted to play pro ball. I wanted to go play pro rugby. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll use me as an example. I didn't make it. I got a really bad neck injury. I had to hang up my boots. I had to stop playing rugby, right? I was like, what happens then? Well, I was fucked. Like, I couldn't do anything. I just had to like figure it out on the fly. But like, okay, these don't make professional sport. Okay, because that 1% of the planet does. And that's amazing. But 99% don't. And again, that wasn't their destiny. They've got something else to give to the world, right? I want to make them better at life. So when they can go to their 9-to-5 desk job, their body feels great. They know how to move. They don't get up and their back hurts all the time. They've got confidence. Their mental health's better. And they're like, oh, maybe I'm going to start like, pushing for something that I've always wanted to do as a side hustle, as a hobby or whatever, just because you've like cared about the individual and the child rather than seeing medals.
Exactly. It makes such a huge difference. I've seen this so much in my whole career as a coach and an athlete. And this actually came, oh my gosh, people say like she's such a bad South African now. I can't remember. It was one of the Springbok rugby captains that spoke at the Sport Awards that I was in many years ago. I'll use that as my excuse. I was very young.
What year?
I think I was like about 13 or 14. So it might have been around the year 2001, 2002. Maybe you'll know.
All I know is Francois.
Francois Pienaar.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't him. It was, I think, the one after.
No, okay. I can't remember.
Yeah. But anyway, so very good speech he gave. And he said he spoke about professional rugby, because obviously that's his game. And he said, this is where people need to distinguish between like sport and also life, because he said, yes, sport can play an important part in your life, but it shouldn't be life. Like it should be a part of your life. And that resonated for me. And this was just before I went to high school. And that's when I also realized, like for me, academics is really important. I want to also work in like the sports psychology field. And, that's when I started to like be like, if I can have both, and if my sport, God forbid, something, happens, I get injured, I get kicked off the team, like, yes, you can have a really tough mindset and be like, I'm going to bounce back and you're going to do all of that and whatever. And like, that's amazing. I mean, but at the end of the day, like you also need something to fall back on if sport, doesn't work out. And like you said, like I feel like I've reached quite a high level in my sport, but I also feel like sport has given me the opportunity to learn so much in life that I can now give to other people. And that's why I love sports psychology so much, because so many of my athletes and clients that I work with, I feel like I have so many things that we can relate to. I feel like in my life as an athlete, I've gone through so many things like ups and downs and even mental health stuff. And, like family issues, like parents divorcing at a really young age, and, having to deal with traveling a lot. And like, also having to work for my money, like, and also because with weightlifting, it's not a professional sport where like with rugby, everything gets paid for. Even though I did get some funding from the government to like help me, because if I competed in international competitions and I would do really well, but it wouldn't cover everything. So I knew I also needed to do something to, that's going to be my bread and butter. And like I said, I loved weightlifting and I'm still doing it to this day. But it's helped me so much to be able to learn so much in life. Like I said, it's like you learn how to be like resilient. You learn how to bounce back from situations, even like, when I've been really injured, like I take what I've learned now and like I'll either help another athlete who is going through the same thing, or even now with like my career, I know that, nothing is going to come easy. Or if there's a little setback, you have to work like super hard to get yourself back there. So like you were saying, sport, is so amazing. And it's literally, like you said, it's 1% of the population that makes it. And then also it depends on what sport, because you can be making it in something like weightlifting and be in a country where weightlifting is not supported. So, you win the Olympic gold medal and people are like, but now what? You're still not like a millionaire. You're not going to have life sorted for the rest of your life. If you come from the Eastern Bloc countries, for them, sport, it pays. Like when I lived in Romania, I saw, the athletes getting salaries from a really young age. They get supported, but they also know sport is their way out.
Yep.
And if they do well in Europeans or Worlds or Olympics, they actually get funded for life. But, when you come from, other type of countries, you don't get that opportunity. But then again, in those other countries, there's also a lot of, doping involved. So, there's positives and negatives with sport. But I do believe, like you said, you can't also just put all your eggs into one basket and just go ham and think like, this is my life. I'm going to plan nothing else beyond it. I believe in always having a plan B. Doesn't matter what.
Mm. Yeah, I say the same thing. Like I've worked with a lot of kids from shit areas, right? And I was a PE teacher in inner city Manchester for a little bit, and we had fucking metal detectors on the doors for kids bringing knives to school and double locking doors and all that type of stuff, right? And I can relate to them because it's the same shit all that I grew up in. But I say to them, I'm like, all right, okay, you're in a shit situation. Like, yeah. I was like, do you want to leave? And the answer is always yes, right? Like no one in the right mind's like, no, I like being in this shithole. It's like, yeah, I want to leave. I'm like, right, well, you got three options, mate. I was like, first of all, like you do really well in school and use academia to get you out of it, but that ain't gonna work, is it? Because you ain't doing that. Second of all, you apply yourself to sport. Like, let's be honest. Second of all, you apply yourself to sport. All right, that's a way out. But that's a riskier option because now you're dealing with an organic thing and that's called your body. So if that starts fucking up, you need something to fall back on. And if you've kind of already thrown away the academia, then you're screwed. And the third one is you better be willing to eat shit and work with your hands. And like that's a harder, longer road. A lot of people don't like taking it. A lot of people end up just settling and just sticking where they are if they end up taking that road. But like the reason why I say it is I've worked in two like vastly different demographic areas, one right at the bottom and one pretty damn affluent. And it's like, it's hard to get across the point that sport for a lot of people is not just fun and games. It's not just a hobby. It's legitimately a way of getting themselves and their family out of a garbage situation and taking them from one environment to another. It's basically like elevating through the social class system, go from the working class to the middle class or the whatever you want to say. And like, it's a lot of pressure, man. That's a lot of pressure. And the psychological impact on kids, right? On children is something that will forever baffle me.
Yeah. One thing I also saw in, Romania, and this very much touched my heart a lot because the same situations that you are saying now, I've worked with a lot of weightlifters in similar situations in South Africa. And just before I left, I kind of dabbled in a non-profit, and that's something that I still want to do. I want to be able to have a non-profit where, I want to be able to go to an orphanage and be like, I want to give kids an opportunity, get something like transport sponsored for them to take them to weightlifting and have them just do the sport, because again, they wouldn't have that opportunity. And a lot of them don't have a parent to say you need to start weightlifting, or, sport could help you open up doors. And when I was in Romania, the really, really sad thing is, and what you were mentioning now, I would see youngsters as young as 9-10 years old. They'll get a salary for being part of the clubs, and that salary goes to the parents. And the parents push them into sport. They a lot of the parents will lose their jobs or go to jail or drink or be abusive or whatever, and that poor kid it's on them now to support their parents for basically the rest of their lives. And this is something that they are stuck in unless, and again, being in that kind of country, it's hard. You can't just be like, I'm just going to move to the States, because a lot of them can't even speak English, and they do what they call sports school. And I saw a lot of kids being older, and they would go to school only like twice or three times a week, and it's only like a couple of hours, and they couldn't read, couldn't speak English. So, the only way out is sport, because like you were saying, the academic side, again, wasn't there for them. So again, there are the odd ones that takes that opportunity, they take it with everything that they got, and they just go. They move overseas, but it's a very small percentage of them. And most of the athletes end up staying there. They follow in their parents' footsteps. They end up potentially quitting sport, maybe working with the family, depending on what they do, working in like grocery stores. And it's so sad to see, because these kids have so much talent and potential, but there's also no one to help guide them. And I think, also that's very important. Like if there's actual programs and people to help guide these kids, because as kids, you don't know any better. So it's very important to have someone there to help guide them, and someone that they can go to for answers. And just, seeing this, it really, it touched my heart, and it made me sad to see. And it made me also appreciate, where I came from. And it also made me feel like I really want to be an advocate for these kids, and I really want to help where I can. And, whenever there's an opportunity, like I said, for me to start a non-profit, I want to be able to do that, to help these kids, to at least show them that, there's other ways.
Let me know when you do that, because I'm there.
Awesome.
Like,
I'll definitely. I've been thinking this for years, so I'm so close to just, I must just get everything sorted, have my permanent stuff here, and then good to go.
Honestly, man, I'm the type of person that has to give back to places. Like we said before we press that fucking record button. It's like, I saw my parents not have 2 pennies to rub together, right? Yeah. Like legit, like, oh, you cold? Put a jumper on. Oh, it's dark? No, wait till it's pitch black before you put a light on. No, you can't ring your dad on the landline because it's going to cost £2.50 or something, and we don't have it. Like ration the milk or whatever. And you see them break themselves, and then you see people around you in worse situations, right? And you're like, fuck me, like this is hard in my house, but my house hasn't got drugs in it, right? My house hasn't got weapons in it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no. Like, we're all going to end up in the same position. They're all going to throw dirt on us when we're done. I was like, I've got to do something before they do that to me. And I'm definitely a type of bloke that needs to be involved in these things. I don't need my name on it. Like, that's not the point. I'm not trying to say that. Like, put me in fucking headlights and everyone's dancing around, cheering me like some sort of like crazy Jesus man.
Yeah, I know you want to help.
Yeah, like I'm like, no, let's go do this. And if I don't know, you need some weightlifting coaching or some frigging PE over in Port Elizabeth, over in Romania, over in somewhere, I'll be like, yeah, okay, cool. Give me like 2 weeks, and I'll sort out a plane, and I'll see you there.
Awesome. Oh. Well, that makes me happy. Now I feel like I've got someone on board with me.
I'm there, mate. I'm there. Like, honestly.
Oh, yeah,
I'm also nuts. Like, I do so many projects, and I don't know, that's what fires me up. That's what keeps me going. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, you do a lot of things, right? And I'm pretty sure you can relate to that. Like, if we did one thing, like, it would probably kill us. Like, if I just did a 9 to 5 or like, if I just did this, no, I wouldn't be a good dude to be around, right? I'd be miserable. Like, I have to kind of live in this state of like anxiety, I guess, of just like this super, super passionate. If anything's going to pour my cup, I'm going to empty my cup, and things are going to pour it back up, and I'm douse petrol on it and light it on fire, and let's go. And it's it's a crazy world we live in, and it's a crazy life to live. But honestly, man, it's what keeps me going. So I'm actually really fired up that you've said about that nonprofit. I'm like, oh my God, let's go.
Oh, that's awesome. It makes me happy because, like I said, it's been stuff I've been dabbling in these kind of things for quite some time. And I try and help where I can. But again, there's sometimes, there's limited resources. And so what I wanted to do previously was I wanted to do this back in the States. And I actually started, speaking to people, but I almost felt like I haven't been in a place long enough to, like, I have the connections, but to actually be there to run the actual project.
Yeah.
But again, I thought to myself, okay, what other ways are there then how I can contribute? And, that's where I kind of feel like sport has blessed me so much, because I feel like if anything, I can try and be a voice for these athletes or for people who hasn't even started the sport yet, and just kind of be someone that they can come to, especially also being a female in the sport. Because growing up, in weightlifting for me was really tough, because again, all the stigmas around it, going to school, people saying all kinds of negative things all the time, I'd go home, be in tears. And it was only when I started traveling overseas, I started to see, firstly, there's girls that's been doing the sport that don't look the way, how people say they're going to look. And secondly, I also saw that if I work my butt off for something, the doors will open. And it might not exactly be that door that I want to open, but a door will open. And there's always, opportunities. And, that's why I say, sport is just, it's such an amazing thing for me, because it's helped me so much grow as a person. But now all these years of growth, I don't want it to go to waste. I want to be able to take everything, that I've learned, all my knowledge, all my, connections I've built, and be able to do something to give back. And like I said, may it be a nonprofit, may it be, speaking to younger kids, I'm not exactly sure what that path looks like yet, but I'm willing to take that, because I kind of feel like the same way, like what you were saying, it gives me life. And when I can't do those things and I'm just working, I don't feel like I have that same sort of fire and drive in me. It's like, as soon as it was so weird. Like I would tell my husband, whenever I work with my sports psychology clients and whenever we have talks, I literally feel like that gives me life, because I feel like, if there's a small little breakthrough, it's such a big win for me. And I'm like, this could help this person. So yeah, I guess it's just, being in sports for so long that I want to help. I want to be able to contribute and not waste everything that I've learned.
I think that's beautiful, man. Like, a lot of people kind of take what they can and move on, you know what I mean? And it's the giving back that creates equal opportunity. And equal opportunity, if you think long term, is what elevates sport, right? If, for example, I use CrossFit, for example. Love the place. I'm level 2, like I love it. I think it's incredible. But it's not everywhere, right? And it's like, oh, the fittest on earth. I'm like, okay, now, yeah, because it's in a lot of places. But when it first started, the first year, could you call yourself the fittest on earth? Like, I think one person traveled from overseas and everywhere else was just from USA. And I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. It's like, and that's how we treat sport, right? Of all sports. Like, people just don't have the capability to go do that. Like, there's no netball courts, there's no equipment, there's no one qualified, right? Like S&C, even in Manchester, S&C, there was no S&C. Why? Because no one is qualified. No one knows how to do the gym. Everyone knows how to go in and bicep curl. That's not going to help you play the pro rock ball, is it? Like,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So it's creating that equal opportunity. It's creating that equal playing field. Kind of look at it through a fair lens, rather than a pay to play society and oh, I know this guy because my dad went to work with him or whatever, and I'm able to get in. It's like, well, that's not fair. That's not fair for all the kids. You know, they're missing out on those life lessons. I always go back to an analogy from Steve Harvey, because he always says, like, if a door closes on you, you just got to walk down the hallway because there's more doors. Right? Okay,
That's
fine.
awesome.
You knock on the door, it gets slammed in your face, walk down the hallway. There's more doors. And you said something that is so true of, like, hard work might not get you to the place where you want you to be, but it will get you to a place. It will get you somewhere. Hard work is never a bad thing.
Yes.
And I think that's everything I've ever done. I've always, like, I'm going to work so fucking hard, like, and break myself for it. And I'm clearly outworking everybody else. Never happens, mate. It's never happened.
Yeah.
I've never got what I wanted to do. Never. Literally never. Well, look where I am, dude. You know, it's like, it will get you somewhere.
Yeah. No, for real. And, you know, this is what I've experienced. And, you know, like I said, how, you know, sport has opened up doors. I would have never have been able to move to the States if I didn't train my butt off, ended up choosing then to, you know, I stopped karate and then went into weightlifting. When my coach said to me, you know, you are quite good. And I had to make that choice. And back then, even though I was young, I sat down with, like, you know, my dad and my karate coach at the time. And because karate wasn't in the Olympics, and my main goal and dream as an athlete has always been to go to the Olympics. Like, that was like almost like my be all and end all. I was like, I want to be an athlete to go to the Olympics. And, you know, it was only last year I missed out on the Olympics by one spot. And, you know, so many things go through your mind. You're like, am I not, you know, good enough? You know, like, all my years of training is wasted. I'm a failure as an athlete. And, you know, someone said something to me, they're like, you literally missed the Olympics by one spot. Do you know how good that is? But to me, being an athlete, always working so hard and having a goal, and, you know, and like I said, there has been times where I haven't achieved that goal, but no matter what, I will do everything from, you know, what I need to do, recovery, you know, making sure my nutrition is on point, my sleep is on point, you know, the hard work, you know, the training. If I need to train twice a day, I'll need to train twice a day. The rehab, the prehab, all of those things, I am willing to do all of it to be able to get to somewhere. Because I know also, and like you'll know also in sport, being a clean athlete, it's not always easy. So you fight against that too. And, you know, it made me realize, you know, this year when I now started to come back, because I'm training for an international comp that's going to be in February, I thought to myself, you know, like, you know, again, was all my years in sport wasted? And then I started to do a lot of, like, mental searching, or, like, you know, digging really deep to kind of find out, like, my why. And I kind of feel like the last, building up to the Olympics, I kind of lost that why, because I was training so hard to get to the Olympics that I didn't actually see anything else outside of that. And when I didn't make it, it was such a huge shock and a disappointment for me. And I ended up saying to myself, you know, I'm going to take 6 months break, my first time ever in my whole career. I'm going to take such a long break, but I'm going to do this to kind of just find myself again, you know, find the reason why I started the sport in the first place. And yes, it took some time. And I again realized that all that work I did wasn't for nothing, because during that time, even building up towards the Olympics, I did a lot of, you know, talks. I was on podcasts. I would, like, do mental health things. I did all of the work, and you sometimes forget to see all the work that you did behind the scenes and just think, I didn't make Olympics. But in essence, there was so much that actually came out of it, including me realizing that, you know, that's not my only reason for living, going to the Olympics. there is so much more. And that's why I thought to myself, you know, what is going to be the next best thing that's going to make me feel like I'm worthy, you know, it's going to give me life, it's going to give me energy. And when I really started digging deep into, again, growing my sports psychology business and, you know, sitting down, counseling athletes, you know, doing the work with them, that's when I realized, you know, all of that I've learned in the journey, so even me not making Olympics, that's something that I can help another athlete with. You know, I know what it feels like to fail. I also know what it feels like to, you know, not medal at 3 Commonwealth Games, and at the 4th one, you know, finally get to stand on the podium. And, you know, it was the most amazing feeling for me in the world when I, you know, got that chance, got that medal, got 6 for 6, broke South African records. So it's like you said, you know, nothing is, all that hard work is not wasted. It's going towards something. And now I'm like, okay, I can take all this hard work and I can help athletes in the field of mental health or sports psychology.
So talk to me about the mental health.
Okay, what do you want to know?
So what do you see mostly in terms of mental health with athletes?
Well, a lot of things or one of the big things I see is most athletes, whenever they struggle in sport, it's not often, very rarely is it actually a sport situation. Very often it's a situation outside of sport.
Yeah.
And that is where, you know, mental health plays such a big role for me, because it's something that I learned only later on, you know, like I grew up being told, you know, you have to be mentally tough, you have to block out things, and you can block out things to a point, but as soon as that thing starts to bleed into your training, you know, if the athlete is mentally healthy, they will also become a better athlete. Yep. So if you can help the athlete deal with those situations also outside of sport, and not just tell them bottle it up, or, you know, we've got this little technique in sports psychology that you can write your problem on a piece of paper and put it in a little bag and zip it up and deal with it after training. You know, it's a very good technique for like compartmentalizing, sorry, there we and just kind of just putting it aside for a little bit and just being like, you know, now I'm going to just focus on the here and now. And yes, that's super important to be a good athlete, and you need to be able to focus on literally what you're doing right now and not have that stuff bleed in. But sometime in your life, you are going to have to deal with it, because there is going to be in your life a time in your life where that stuff will start to bleed into it. And, you know, this has happened to me. I've seen this happen to numerous athletes. You know, maybe for a very short period of time, you can block it out. Say there's a massive competition coming up, but I'm a strong believer in you have to deal with the issues. And if you don't deal with those issues, it will end up breaking the athlete. And that's why I think, you know, mental health has become such an important topic over the last couple of years. And I feel like it's been so amazing to see so many athletes speak out about it, you know, even like Simone Biles. And then, you know, there's been some rugby players, you know, that would like come out and speak about mental health and just talk about, you know, them dealing with depression and dealing with anxiety. And, you know, for many years, I just thought to myself, whatever situation is outside of training, I just need to block it out. And like I said, until it started to bleed into training, and I was working with my sports psychologist, you know, at that time. And she was like, you know, we have to deal with this. And we also, you know, as an athlete, you know, you're very good with putting things aside. But when in your life are you going to deal with it? Are you going to deal with it when you retire sport? And then it's going to be like a whole, you know, set of things just bleeding over into your life. And you have to make that decision. And I think there should be more people out there that can not just speak out about it, but there must be doors or opportunities for athletes to actually go and speak to a professional. Because I think there's still, yes, people are speaking out about it on social media, people are speaking out about it, in public with interviews, but there's not a lot of sports where there's an actual mental health professional that's there to help the athlete. And I don't always believe, the coaches, yes, they must be able to help, and they must be able to, there must be such a trust relationship between the athlete and the coach that the athlete can actually go to the coach to say something is wrong. But I also believe then, it's the coach's responsibility to be like, okay, I'm not an expert in this field, but I want to send you to someone that can help you without that athlete feeling like now they've exposed themselves. Now they're going to be kicked off a team. Now they're going to be, have that stigma of, being mentally weak. And coaches are like, I don't want mentally weak athletes on my team. I don't want athletes on my team that's dealing with emotional home stuff. And in all honesty, like, there's a lot of people dealing with those kind of stuff. And, it ends up, again, like I said, bleeding into an athlete's life. And, worst case scenario, like the athlete harms themselves because they have nowhere to go, and no one to talk to. And, and you never wanted to get to that point, but it's gotten to that point now where I think the world is seeing how serious it is. And I think especially during the pandemic, it's opened up a lot of eyes, because athletes were suffering, and athletes did start to speak out about the fact that they are suffering. And like I said, I just think if sporting organizations can put more programs into place for these athletes, so many more athletes can be helped, and so many more athletes, will be able to be athletes for longer because they won't have, the mental health stuff break them down.
That's it. Like most people look at athletes as gladiators, right? Well, gladiators are human beings. Like they have feelings, right? And they're gonna have some shit to deal with. And you made a really, really important point, of if I just take it and put it to the side, right? And every time I just take it and put it to the side, the same side, it's gonna piling up, right? That's either gonna stop my career, hinder my career, or if I get to the end of it, right, you're going to have this whole heap of bullshit that you've got to sieve through and be able to like unwind and unravel. And you're like, that is a lot of work. That's not going to be, 10 minutes of gratitude and journaling and a little bit of meditation or a morning walk in the morning. That's going to be some deep therapy. That's going to be some like really important things. And I think it's important to break the stigma because it stops people from going down the drink route, or it allows them a different way, right? Most athletes, especially back home, like, I don't know if it's the weather that fucks people up, but as soon as they finish sport, it's like, right, well, I might as well, just carry on getting on the sauce. I don't have to go to training, right? And they just drink it away.
Are you talking about the Manchester weather?
Yeah, like UK, yeah.
I know actually what you mean. Like, also they talk about weather-induced depression.
SAD syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah. Just continue on that train.
Yeah, honestly, that's why we have so many pubs. It was it's called a public house. It used to be like a B&B, like you could sleep there. It's also your social, but like it's a place to go when it's grey and fucking raining all the time. It's like it's a little bit of a jollier time, You'd rather get a little bit of a liquid sweater on, so then you feel a little bit warmer than go outside and it's raining and it's dull and it makes a lot of sense, but also it's not going to help you live like a long life.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's one of those things, again, it's also very much, I think, culture dependent. Because with my husband being a Kiwi, he was saying to me, it's a big tradition here too. Like they like drinking, and it's kind of like their way of like socializing, and it's like kind of like a way of life, But like you're saying now, especially if you're battling with things, it makes it difficult because you can't hide it through those things like alcohol or smoking or any other thing. It's better to just deal with it. But again, if there's no one to talk to, and what can you do? You can go on, Dr. Google, and you can Google, like, what's wrong with me and stuff like that. And obviously that gives you a whole bunch of nonsense. And at the end of the day, you're sitting with athletes who's sitting with their pain, and you think yes, this is just a troubled child. This is just a child that, he doesn't want to listen. He doesn't have discipline. But there's, if that child just feels that they can open up and trust, because a lot of times it just takes a lot for that child to be like, I need to just be able to trust someone that I can open up to, that's not going to judge me and tell me I'm useless, or, I'm never going to be an athlete in my life. Just have someone help them and deal with these things, because that person could actually flourish, and that person could actually be someone who could change other people's lives in the future, because they've gone through it and they've overcome it. But to overcome it, there needs to be something out there to help them, because it's difficult. Again, like, you can't deal with this by yourself.
Agreed, especially when it's kids, right? Like, even we're seeing with the stresses of children in pro sport, or getting towards academy and pro sport, like you're now getting that on an undeveloped mind, and then that's just going to have more years of trauma building.
Yes.
And it goes back to, okay, cool, you don't play pro ball. Okay, cool, you play 1 year or whatever. But what have you got to give to humanity, right?
Yes.
What, scoring tries and kicking a ball in the back of an onion basket? I mean, like, come on, like you've got a little bit more to give than that. Like, we are all so many things, right? We're not. Someone who was it, Libby, like this week, she said we're human beings, not human doings.
Yes.
And it blew my mind. I was like, yes, like our identity in most cases is what we do. All right, that's who I am. It's like, no, that's what you do for
Yes,
now.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, life is long. It's long enough to live 100 different lives. You could be 100 different people, and when you get to the end of it, hopefully you've learned a little bit from each
Yes.
one of them, right? And then you can like kind of pass that on and be like, good luck, I'm kind of on to the next one. And yeah, I think it's really important we look after athletes and think of them as human beings, rather than you're my entertainment. It's like, yeah, okay, sport is entertainment, yeah, and it's a massive industry, it's a business, right? It's money, but fuck money, man. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what, making money at the expense of potentially someone's life? It's like, I'm not about that. Like, maybe we need to make money out of saving people and helping people.
Yes, 100% agree. And I must actually mention USA weightlifting, because this is something that I've seen they have been implementing with their athletes, and anyone who's part of the USA weightlifting, like, registered to them. Like, you can be any athlete. If you are battling with mental health, they actually have mental health professionals out there for all the athletes. And that's why athletes like Maddie Rogers and Catherine Nye, they can speak out about these things, because they got the help that they needed. And someone like Catherine Nye, she's got bipolar. And if you think about it, like, if you are a person with bipolar and there's no one there to help you, there's a very good chance that also things could go very bad for you. So being able to help that athlete, now that athlete is an Olympic champion, or, world champion or whatever, and, it's an athlete that has got bipolar. And the same thing, like with, Maddie Rogers, she's an athlete that is dealing with mental health stuff. And, she is open about the fact now that she started taking medication. And, you might not be like a doctor or anyone to say, okay, listen, you need medication. But the thing is, like, if a doctor prescribes it and you get to that point, to know that there's nothing wrong with you if they do that. Like, it's just there. Like, my sports psychologist told me something a long time ago that actually, like, really resonated with me. And she said, you can be the strongest athlete in the world, and you can have all the coping skills, but sometimes that is not enough. You need that little bit of extra help. And if you sometimes have that little bit of extra help, like something to help the anxiety, it could just help you manage things so much better, so it doesn't escalate into something that could actually end up being something really bad. Because being an athlete who has like suffered anxiety, sometimes it feels like you don't have control. And I have asthma as well, so now like the anxiety on the asthma causes more anxiety. So it literally it's like this whole downward spiral of things. And you kind of just feel like there's no one that can help you. But just knowing that there is something out there, and being able to speak to someone and say, okay, listen, obviously we're not just going to give out medication like left, right, and center, but if an athlete really needs this, and this is going to just help them function, or just help them feel like they've got an extra coping skill or something to help them cope, it's okay. For like, yes, it should be monitored, and you should make sure that it's not something that they potentially use for life, or if it's maybe just for a time being. But I also feel like don't be afraid that if your doctor or your psychologist or psychiatrist prescribe something like this, don't feel like you are this person who is just mentally damaged. It doesn't mean that. There is now so many athletes out there that are using these things just to help them. And I've listened to quite a few, like even TED talks, like like throughout my years, and I've heard many Olympic athletes say, because being an athlete, especially an elite level athlete, it takes a lot out of you mentally. And like what you're saying now, people do treat you like a machine, and coaches can treat you like a machine. And sometimes they don't even know that they are doing this, but they just see you as like this worker bee that they can just push the whole time. And as the athlete, you also don't want to let them down. So you push your body through the ringer, you push your mind, obviously through the ringer. And and then at the end, until something breaks, that's the only time when people realize, oh, whoa, maybe she is human, or maybe he is, he is human. You're not a machine. You have feelings. You probably have exactly the same stuff as any other person out there. It's just when it comes to competition time, you can just, bundle it all up and just have that really, really good focus, or be like in the zone. And just sometimes, for athletes, they actually use it to fuel them. Yeah.
It's so funny that you use the analogy of a worker bee, because that's the emblem of Manchester.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's on my wall.
I was like, I knew, right? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's on my necklace too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's funny. But it's true, man. Like we treat athletes like that. We think they're some sort of, alien or machine, or this godlike figure. And you're like, no, that's just a human being that has potentially a little bit of talent, potentially not. But has put in a sickening amount of work to be able to get there, sacrificed a hell of a lot to be able to get there, now is there and has to do even more to stay there. And we're watching it for entertainment. I was like, sitting on your couch eating popcorn when you're thumbing your ass does not like show you how bad and how hard it is being in the computer screen, right? Or in the television screen, or on the stage doing the actual sport. Like it's insane. And the pressure on them, like, yeah, definitely. I agree. Like we need to do better. And I think it starts with conversations like we're doing now, of being like, okay, cool. What's it like on your side? What's it like from my perspective? Oh, okay, this is really cool. Let's like decipher this. Let's turn over all the jigsaw pieces. Let's look at it from a distance and be like, right, now let's get the fucking work.
Yes. That's so true. And I also think, people are so quick to criticize, like the people sitting there with their beer or their hot dog or whatever, the people eat, and they'll just be there and just be like, that athlete is so useless, like, oh, they shouldn't be on the field, they're mentally weak, and people are very, very quick to criticize. And this is something I even saw with Simone Biles, at the Olympics, and there was a lot of controversy around it, and a lot of people had obviously a lot to say. But at the end of the day, I think if there was someone that could make a statement, she did make that statement. And she kind of also used that position. I think some people say like, oh, she just quit, but the thing is, she actually used her status and her position to actually show people that, like, doesn't matter how good you are, you can still have mental struggles, and they can still affect you on game day. And you can still freeze up and just be like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've lost all my skill. And it happens to athletes. And that's obviously one of the big things around anxiety. And I read a book a while back, and they were saying the biggest mental disorder out there, they called like mental disorder, they said, is anxiety. And they said people are so scared to admit they are dealing with anxiety that they will much rather admit that they suffer from something like bipolar or schizophrenia or something hectic, because then they know, okay, this is really a reason to medicate. But when you say someone is suffering anxiety, people are like,
Get on
okay,
with it.
Get on with it. Like, what's going on? Like, it's just become like a big thing where people are like, anxiety is not a thing. Anxiety is more an excuse for why you haven't performed well. And like, again, I can, as an athlete that has suffered anxiety, I know that it will sometimes just it will just come. It doesn't matter when. Like, you don't always know when it's going to come, and it could come when you are on an airplane. I remember a couple of years back, I had to do an MRI scan, and I had an anxiety attack just before the scan, and I couldn't understand. I just thought to myself, now I'm going into this small little tunnel, and I said to the doctor, I'm like, I feel like the biggest failure ever. Like, I literally, I started going into the MRI thing, and I was just like, I can't do this. I just felt like everything is like crumbling up, and I'm being squashed in this little hole. And I just, that's when I was like, I need to do something about this. I need to, speak to my sports psychologist, like speak to a professional, understand what's going on. I need to, try and have some coping mechanisms. And even though being in the sports psychology field for so long, you sometimes forget about breathing. You forget, that there's like these little techniques that you can use that can help. And I mean, it's something that can make a massive difference. But when it happens to you, the stuff doesn't just come to your mind. You literally, the only thing you are thinking about when you get an anxiety attack is surviving. And I think that's what people don't often realize. They're like, why don't you just breathe? Do your breathing techniques. But at that time, that's not your thought.
Even helpers need help, man. Like, oh no, it's fine. She's the person that helps everybody else. Don't worry about it. She's got her own back. I was like, if you have everybody else's back, who's got your back?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
You need to know how to look after yourself. And yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, granted. But like, sometimes you need help.
Exactly.
Helpers
100%.
need help.
Yeah. And the same thing like coaches. I'm also a big advocate. Like, if I'm a coach, but I still need a coach.
Yeah,
because
coaches.
Yes. And that's something where a lot of people, in the past, they were like, Mona, you've been in the sport for 21 years. You have traveled the world. You've been on overseas training camps in Egypt, in Romania, and all these like amazing places. Why don't you just coach yourself? I have to explain to them, it doesn't work like that. I need someone that I can also go to keep me accountable. Someone that I can go to, or a program that I can follow, where I don't actually have to use my brain to go and be like, I need to do this. I literally just want to like open my phone and be like, oh, this is my program. Because I sit all day writing programs, helping people with regards to sports psychology. So it's nice for me to just be like, now I can sit back and do the talking and let things out. And, the same thing, open my phone, do my program, just do the work, be the worker bee. And just, love. And that's why I love what I do. I think if I had to start writing my own program for weightlifting, I would probably not love it as much, because I would just feel like it's work instead of it's my outlet.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with that. Like if I'm ever in a position like now, like no one coaches me, I'm a little bit bunged up. Like both my wrists are a little bit fucked, so I can't really weightlift. Yeah, it's not good. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm squatting again. That's the only thing we know how to do, right? Weightlift, like
squatting and pulls.
Yeah, that's it. Fuck pulls, man. They annoy me. They're boring. But I'll do double squats. No, I'm joking. I won't sit down and write a program. I'll be like, okay, I'll have like a mental kind of segmented through the week, and then I'll kind of fill in the blanks with whatever I feel. But say, for example, you wrote me something, I'm like, if hell froze over, I'm doing this shit.
Yes.
It's getting done. Don't worry about it. Like, it's like, Alex, you've only got one leg and one arm. Don't worry about it. I've got there. Like, I will get it done.
Yeah. So, I'm dedicated to the program. I'm dedicated to my coach.
Yeah. And it's that trust as well. It's that trust.
Yes, 100%. I actually always say, the best, athletes out there is the athletes who have the best athlete-coach relationship.
Yes.
And as soon as the athlete doubts the coach, I feel like the relationship is also screwed, or vice versa. It literally, if the athlete doesn't trust the coach and their reasoning behind things, they'll always question it. And this was something my dad said to me many years ago. He's like, because my coach is USA based, and he was my coach for 8 years in weightlifting. And he said, I've never seen a person like literally whatever your coach says, you do. And can I swear on the podcast?
Of course. Like I
just have to say something. Okay. I just have to say something. So when I started training, my coach's name was Dutch Lowy. The only deal, because at that time, I didn't actually tell you a bit about my CrossFit background, but I was doing CrossFit at the time, and I qualified for the CrossFit Games, went, and then I wanted to be CrossFit full time. And my coach said to me, no, I think personally, like, CrossFit is, it's an amazing sport and everything, but I feel like you still have, I still feel like weightlifting is still your main thing, and we're not done with weightlifting yet. And I had this like a video chat with Dutch Lowy at the time, because a coach from South Africa actually introduced us. And Dutch said to me, okay, this is our deal. I will coach you, but you will never fuck around on my program. I was like, deal. Whatever you say, I'll do, and that's why we worked for so long, because whatever he said, if he said to me, don't do CrossFit because we are prepping for the world, even though I had a CrossFit gym, and it's tempting, and I love jumping on the rings and doing muscle ups and all those kind of things, I had to stop myself, because I had this little voice inside my ear that was like, don't fuck around on Dutch's program. Like, I respect my coach. I want to be a commonwealth medalist. And the only way I'm going to do this or go to the Olympics is, if my coach and I, there's 100% transparency. And especially being overseas, my coach doesn't have control over like my actions. He doesn't see me every day. In fact, the only time we met was in 2015, when I went and the training before the world at his, I went to stay with him for 3 months. And that was the only time he actually saw me, and he had 100% control. But I was very honest with him about, everything that I do, how I felt. And that's why the relationship worked so well. And we just made such a good athlete coach team. And I feel like, I've been blessed. I have that with my current athletes too. And I always tell them, and like coaches have said to me before, they like, my athletes do CrossFit, and they, I tell them, don't do these things on the side, or, like, just do what the program says. But I say, I tell my athletes that if you do want to do those things, rather tell me so that I know, and that there's complete honesty, because otherwise the program will not work. Because it might be like 2 weeks down the line, and I think to myself, why is there not X amount of progress? Or why is this athlete battling with, a sore back or wrist or whatever, then it comes out later on, they did, kettlebell swings, or they did, whatever, box jumps and fell. So it's just good to be able to have that with your athletes. And again, I think it also, again, opens a nice doorway for the mental health side of things, because we have such an open relationship, and my athletes tell me when something is wrong. So I find, like, obviously my boy athletes are very, like, or man or whatever, they're very, they want to be like a man, and they want to be tough, and they don't want to speak about their feelings.
Yeah.
But it's been nice because we've broken those barriers too. But that took time. I had to let them know that, like, you telling me, because a lot of them also do other sports like basketball, and they wanted to get into universities for basketball, like get scholarships and things. So the weightlifting would be an assistant sport for that. And I tell them, speak to me, because at the end of the day, if I don't know, I'm going to continue pushing you with the program, and we might be damaging you and pushing you into an injury. And I don't want that either. I want to help you. So let me help you by just being honest with me and telling me exactly what's going on.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And I think that's so important for a coach to hear. And I think it's so important for an athlete to hear too, of, I should be able to relay these pieces of information to a coach. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I got 3 questions.
Yes.
All right.
Sure.
I'm obsessed with these questions, because I think people's perspectives on it is wild, man. You get to take a dip into someone else's reality, and I think that's really cool. So question 1 is, what's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
I think the best life advice I've ever received is what I told you, what the Springbok rugby coach said, when he said, sport must be a part of your life, but it mustn't be life. It mustn't be the be all and end all. And I think having a dad that was very sport driven, and he wanted, like, people used to say I was almost brought up like a military child, because I had, from the age of like 8 years old, I had to train 3 times a day, wake up 5 o'clock in the mornings. I didn't, go and play with friends and stuff like that. My dad was like, you have to tell your friends you have training. And, that was my life. And, my mom, she was the academic. And even though, my father would be like, Mona's the athlete, my mom would be like, academics is also still important, and as a child, I think you see sport as more of like an exciting thing than academics. But then hearing the Springbok rugby coach say that, I was like, I have an opportunity here to do both. Why can't I do both? And if something doesn't work out, if something, God forbid, happens with my sport, I will have my academic background to fall back on.
I think that's important for young people to hear that. Definitely. I think it would have helped me, but we all have our own paths,
Exactly. And also, it doesn't matter when you start in life, right? Like, as long as you start. So, you've got your journey, and you've got, a purpose. And I feel like it also kind of worked out the way it should have, in, it's taken you overseas to places where you are now, and now you're changing lives, from just being abroad and, growing and doing amazing things.
I appreciate it. Like, we'll just keep on going, and I'll always go where the wind takes me,
Yes. And then hopefully also part of my nonprofit.
You mean hopefully? I'm there. I told you. It's done. It's over. Like, I'm there 100%. Awesome. And it's now they've got it on record as well. You can quote me.
Yes.
Good. Motherfucker.
You'll be the first person. I'll then call you up and I'll be like, Alex, we're doing this. Get your stuff ready.
Yeah. Pack a bag. We're leaving.
Yeah.
Where are we going? Mozambique. Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
When?
Right?
10 minutes. There's a taxi outside. Don't ask questions. Just get in.
Yeah.
I'll be like, wait, this is some James Bond shit, Mona. I'm not sure I'm ready for this.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna expect it. I'm gonna expect it.
Yeah.
What's the worst piece of life advice you've ever received?
Um,
This
That's
is
actually a
always a
funny
fun one.
one. Okay. Again, I guess seeing because like my family had a lot of influence in my life as, being an athlete and, even the person I am today. So I was preparing, I think it was for the World Championships for karate at the time. And I had a really, really late training session that one night. And I said to my dad, I've got exams tomorrow. And he's like, listen, you should have studied for those exams prior to, and I'm like, but I thought training was just going to go until 7. And he's like, well, you haven't done what you're supposed to do. Your training hasn't been looking good tonight. We're going to just push. And that's why I said my dad was very military-like. He's changed over the years. He's become a lot softer. But he was like, grind until you do it right kind of person. And he said to me, luckily I didn't do it though, but he said to me, oh, if you go into the exams tomorrow, just draw a rock and write on the rock, the answers is under the rock. And so I was like, you got to be joking, Dad. And he's like, well, you can either do that or you're going to be studying until early mornings of the day. So obviously I chose to study till early mornings of the day because I also knew that, because actually later on, I got a scholarship to study at the university from my weightlifting and karate achievements. So I also knew, and I think that was also the thing that motivated me because I knew if my marks dropped, I would lose my scholarship. So I had to keep it up there. But yeah, that was the advice I got from my dad. I know he meant it as a joke, and he'll probably be really angry if he hears this. But yeah, he told me, tell the teacher all the answers are under the rock.
That's genius. That's absolutely genius.
Yeah.
I think the best way, the best cheating ways I ever saw was you get like a bottle of Lucozade or something, right? And then you take off the plastic and you write all the answers on the back of it and you stick the plastic back on. So once you've finished your drink, you can like clearly see through. Oh,
exactly.
Man.
Oh my gosh. Is that your trick?
Well, my trick was kind of sit there and be like, what do I do?
Yeah. It's so funny though.
No,
that was quite funny. And I don't think the teachers would have thought that was very funny if I did that. Neither did my mom, because obviously she was, the academic one, like I said. So I think that kind of helped because she was like, she came into the gym and she's like, Mona hasn't studied for her exam yet. And my dad's like, if the exam, training is more important. That's what he used to say. So I'm very glad that I didn't just take that advice. I followed a little bit of, from both sides, and it worked out well, I think.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you could have drawn, worse things on your paper than a rock. So I don't think they'd have been too pissed. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a better option not to draw the rock and write answers are underneath. It's actually brilliant. No, I think that's comedically genius.
I do want to say on the podcast, though, if there's any students listening to this, please never do this. It's like, don't do this. Don't do as I do. Like,
Yeah, do it and blame you. Send everybody your way. It's not my way. I didn't have anything to do with this.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the worst advice I got.
The worst advice. Yeah.
That's funny.
What about last question is 3 words you would tell your younger self?
3 words.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I would probably say, so I can say a word and it can have a meaning behind the word, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say love. Do I need to explain it or not?
Just you don't have to.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just quickly explain. I will say just love, just because when I was younger, I very much just saw myself as the worker bee, and I needed to achieve things. And I didn't, I was just working towards goals, but I didn't really love myself, and I didn't at the time love the process. I knew what I wanted to achieve, but yeah, I very much, I had a very bad outlook on myself, if that makes sense. And I think that came just with all the stigmas around, you know, being a female in sport. So if I just had someone tell me like, you know, love yourself and, you know, kind of love the process. So that would be the first word. The second word, that's a good one. Oh my gosh, I can't actually. I do have one, but it's actually 2 words. I don't know if I can.
Well, that would be your 3 words.
That would be my 3 words.
Yeah.
Okay, it would be talk less, because when I was younger, I was the person who I love talking, and I love, you know, communicating with people and stuff. And I was always the one in class or around the table whenever we would have like training camps that would talk so much, and I would never want to eat my food. And my coach would always be like, you know, if you just talk less, you would be able to eat more food and we'll be able to be stronger. And I would always be the last one at the table eating my food. Or maybe I should actually say eat. Eat should actually be one of my words, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I think I've said too many words now, but yeah. I honestly, the most important one, I would just be the love one is probably the most important.
That's super heartfelt, and I feel that a lot. Mona, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for doing this, you know, having a conversation with a dude that sounds pretty weird on the other end of the screen, who's actually in the same country, which is kind of cool. Well, I appreciate it, right? Man.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I love the conversation. It was so, you know, awesome to talk to a like-minded person that understands, you know, things from not just the mental health side of things, but also from sport, and someone who's traveled and lived abroad. You know, it kind of feels nice to be like, oh, I'm not, you know, I'm in this country, but we're not, you know, from New Zealand. But the world has kind of taken us here for a reason.
Yes, you're not the only crazy person here. Don't worry about it. There is at least
with
one more. With a funny accent. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome.
I think that's the key point, right? We both sound weird.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it makes the podcast awesome, though. You know, it makes it unique.
Yeah, for sure. You know, if everyone sounded the same, it'd be boring. Same with if everyone looked the same, it'd be boring.
Exactly.
But there is only one way to speak, and that's like me. I'm joking.
Is it that?
I'm fucking with you. No, I think accents and language and I think it's incredible. Like, I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with that. I'm obsessed with culture. I'm obsessed with like the little intricacies that people pick up and the nuances from different places that they've either visited or grown up with. And I just think it makes us who we are, and it's so interesting to just kind of be around and communicate and learn from other people. So yeah.
No, I agree with you. And again, you know, just to end off, like, you know, again, this is what sport opened up doors for me to travel the world and see and experience all these different cultures. And like you said, now I think it's like the reason I am who I am today, because I've gotten to experience, you know, the best of the best and the worst of the worst. And you see how people live in certain countries, and you tend to also see like the mindset they have, and you get inspired by that. So, you know, you can learn from each place that you go to and each culture. And at the end of the day, you know, it can just make you a stronger person at the end of the day, because now you know what other people are going through, and you can also be blessed by, you know, how you were brought up or where you come from.
You can relate to more people, you know, like you have so much more empathy for the human being, rather than just like always being around a certain amount of a certain type of person, you know, like you really do epitomize the idea of a growth mindset once you kind of embark on this journey and leave the place that you grew up in and kind of, you know, just keep walking through life. And I think it's a really beautiful thing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It actually inspired me now to get back to the grind and, you know, do more good things out there.
Hey, I mean, I'm gonna wait for that taxi and that don't talk to me, get in the car phone call.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's gonna be scary, but I'll do it.
Just think of yourself, you're like you said, in a James Bond movie or something.
Okay, cool.
And you're going to do amazing things.
The name's Bond, James Bond, the new 007. Just saying, like, if they want me to play that role, I'll do it. You know, just saying.
You can play that role with the kids, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not cheap. You know, if they want me to put me on a big screen, you know, they can pay me like big bucks.
Exactly right.
Fuck, I don't think I could be an actor. Holy shit, no. I'm too shy for that. I'm too introverted. I just want to do my thing.
Oh, yeah, same, really. Like,
don't put
I'm
the
so
camera on me.
awkward, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
awkward, I can be myself like this, you know, this is who I am. But as soon as I even, like, sometimes when I have to make YouTube videos, I'm like, you know, I feel like I'm awkward around the screen. Like, I don't know how people do this. Like, it's insane. Like, I have so much like respect for them being able to do that.
You start blushing, you start stuttering, right? You usually go like super strong with your accent, and you replay it. You're like, no one's gonna know what the hell I just said. You know, where's the subtitle button? And then you put that on with the captions, and they don't get the right ones, and they can't understand you. I'm like, if a fucking robot can't understand what I'm saying, everybody else is screwed.
That's so funny.
But anyway, I appreciate your time, man. Awesome. And we'll grab a coffee and a lift in sometime whenever I get up to Auckland.
Definitely. And same thing, I'll come visit up that side. Like I said, I need to travel a bit more. So
yeah, you need to.
I'll come do that.
All right, mate. Awesome. Have a good day.
Thanks, Alex.
Peace.
You too.
Bye, everybody.